Hello everybody, John here, and today on To The Garage, part 2 of making our bespoke mounting bracket for the Carpuride smart screen that's going to go in my Jaguar XK8 X100. I took the template that I made in the last video and further refined the design a little bit. In some parts just for ease of manufacture, in others just to make the dimensions make sense. You know these smudges? That's where Gracie the dog licked it to approve of the design. What I'll do is I'll put a nice square on image of this on screen now, so that you can freeze frame and use it if you want to copy along and do exactly the same as me. You may have much better ideas than me, so please don't feel obliged. And I've scanned this as a document, so I'll put that up on the website in the useful documents area, so you can download it if you want a copy. And if you print it on an A4 sheet with borderless, it'll come out 1:1, so you can do exactly what I'm about to do. I mustn't forget, it's actually the start of a new month. We're in June. So we have to say bye-bye to Christian Breitkopf and Segato. And we say hello today. Whoa, a dynamic shot. Now, we didn't get too many moving shots in our photo competition, but this we did get, and you guys all loved it as much as me. So this is Frederick Salava, 2001 XKR, pictured at speed on a dirt road at Söderbach in Dalarna, Sweden. I may have murdered Söderbach. I'm not sure how that's pronounced, but thank you anyway, Frederick. Great shot. Really nice to see somebody taking the time and effort to get a picture of our car at speed. And as always, got lots of nice thumbnails across the bottom, and thank you everybody for entering. I'm going to be doing a live feed video very shortly, and we might talk about the next photo competition. We're going to make this bracket today. So we've gone from cardboard prototype to drawing of sorts, but I think we'll be correct or very close. If I do end up modifying and going away from this design, then obviously I'll let everybody know, but you know, you can design your own. You saw how I did the prototyping. Previously I'd said I was probably going to use a piece of 0.8 steel. So that is sheet metal that you'd typically find for car bodywork. It's pretty stiff and would be really good for it. However, in going through my scrap pile, I found this, which is 1.3mm thick aluminium, which is very stiff. And aluminium is a lot easier to work. And so I think I'm going to use this just because I've got it. So 1.3mm Ali. What's the downside of it? It work hardens quite quickly, so if you make folds like we're going to, you can make that fold, that'll be not an issue. You can maybe tweak it back once. Once you start getting into multiple bends of a particular fold, it will fracture. The steel is a lot more forgiving in that regard, and of course you can weld a captive nut on a piece of steel if you want to, but Ali's very easy to work with generally, so we're going to go for that. So it's just a scrap, been used for other things. This is an offcut in effect. All I'm going to do is clean it up a little, and then I'm going to stick one copy of my drawing onto the sheet using spray-on trim fix adhesive. That's something I highly recommend if you had the facility to get hold of a drawing that is 1:1. Yeah, it doesn't matter how careful you are, when you're doing a shape that isn't just a plain rectangle or something like that, it's very easy to cut bits out and forget which bit of what you're making you're keeping and which bit you're scrapping and make mistakes. If you've actually got the shape on the sheet, it's so much easier to say, well, I've got to cut around the piece of paper. Grab myself a pair of scissors, cut out the overall shape. So I'm not cutting around it. Just making sure that I get the whole of the rectangle that my part is going to sit in. Yeah, that works well. I'm going to spray some spray glue onto here, and then we're going to stick that piece of paper on. This is essentially contact adhesive but thin. Oops. So I'll give that a second. There's no point in spraying it on the back of the paper. The paper is too thin and too absorbent. I actually did my original drawing on a piece of pink card, and I do recommend doing templates and things in a colour other than white. You know it's your template, and it just stands out better against any materials you're sticking on it, and you just make that association. Template, pink, try not to cut, all that sort of thing. So we just wait for this to flash off, and if you line it up with a couple of square edges, that's two edges you haven't got to cut. If you haven't got any nice straight edges, then obviously that's fine, you've just got a couple more cuts to make. So that's scrap. That's my template original, which I'm just hanging on to. I don't know why, just in case I want to make mods, I suppose. And I've given myself one copy of the drawing, just because I need a few dimensions. Now, on this refined version of my original design, I have made specific radiuses for these corners, and I've given them dimensions. That's not about me thinking, oh, that's got to be a radius of 5, else it will look wrong or won't work right. It's purely about, I know I've got a 10mm drill. I know I've got a 44mm hole saw with TCT blades, which will cut through this like a dream. So I've chosen sizes that work. This wouldn't really work as a drilled hole because the radius would make these legs too short, or if I make a smaller radius, it would start to come in too close to this fold for me. So that will have to be cut out more labour intensively. So I just copied the radius that I got on there, and that turned out to be about 29. So I would recommend drilling your holes that you're going to use to cut this out first. Whilst you're in a big sheet, it's dead easy to clamp the material. The hole saw particularly is going to try and kick this around. So you don't want to be trying to cut big holes in a delicate item when it's all cut out. So do your holes first. Now, in my original drawing, I've given myself 22 from the bottom and 40 across to the centre of this radius and all that sort of stuff. But because I've stuck a full-size drawing to the sheet, I don't need to deal with any of that. I treat it as marked out, and we'll start with centre punching that, the hole in the middle, and these two are so that I don't have a sharp corner and a nicer, elegant corner here by meeting two holes. Now I need a 5mm drill for the center hole, so I'm going to start with that one and drill all the way through, and then I can use that as a pilot drill for all of these. Another challenge you hit with thin metals is you find it difficult to hold on to the workpiece without destroying it and pulling it to pieces. So it's a good idea, find yourself a little bit of wood, and depending on what you are doing and the design of it, find somewhere on your sheet that you can attach it to the sheet and not be in your own way for a while. So I'm drilling through the scrap. I know I don't need that piece. That's good. I'm going to put one over here. Now I've got something that can be clamped in a vise really easily, and when I cut through, I'm not going to necessarily snag as much. If this screws in the way, because I want to drill this, then I can take it out and I can put one in this piece of scrap. And hence you just sort of plan ahead a little bit in terms of which pieces you should take out when, or keep it attached to the main sheet for a little longer than you might anticipate is a good idea. 5mm drill, that hole in the middle is its finished size, and you can see straight away being into the wood gave me something to drill into without any worries. I'm going to use it as a pilot drill for the 10mm here. And for this big radius here. Next, I want to go out to 10mm on these rads. And for that, I'm actually going to use a cone drill. Now, that might seem like laziness, but when you're drilling in thin sheet, cone drills have a better cutting angle for thin materials than normal twist drills. And you're effectively just jumping up by a couple of millimeters with every step, so you're never going to get into a situation where the drill bites and screws its way through the metal, chewing it up or hurting you as it does so. So cone drills are very useful. And you can see this one is nice because it's marked such that I know the first step is a 4. That's going to go straight in. Then I shall cut 6, cut 8, cut 10. So I need to cut, 3 cuts. 1, 2. Obviously we're cutting the wood as well. And then just sweep that clear. Have a little look at that. Lovely. Now we've got our big boy, the R22 or 44mm diameter. Now if I was cutting sheet steel, I probably would transfer this to my little drill press at this stage. It's a relatively big drill, and it is thin metal and it's got a good chance of snagging if you're off center. However, in aluminium, very forgiving. I'm using TCT, tungsten carbide tip tools, diameter 44. These are very, very robust, not like the tin ones, and have lots of individual carbide tips. I bought a set of these when I did the hole for doing the diff oil change on the XK8. Never regretted it. They are quite simply brilliant, and I don't think they were very expensive. Right, I'm just eyeing this up. That screw is in my way. Put another hole. Even a cone drill starts that beautifully. Here. Lovely. Take this one out. And I'll show you another nice little trick. Put a washer on a screw, because I do want to hold this corner down. I can overlap a good bit, an area I want to keep, over here. And clamp him down. So, nicely clamped. This is slightly bigger than 5mm, which is good because that means it'll clean up that hole and give me a really good pilot, so it'll locate really nicely. And with the hole drill, most important thing is steady, straight and true. Try not to apply too much pressure. It's aluminium, it's going to go through like butter anyway. So there we are. We've just let it clean up the pilot hole, come into contact. You're trying to make it kiss all the way around, and then use the weight of the drill. Done. Remember, hot and sharp. At this stage, I'm just going to cut the paper along roughly my drawn line, keeping the black line on show, so we can do that. Okay, it just keeps it very clear what you're trying to get rid of and what you're keeping. And prevent silly mistakes that mean you have to start all over again. And hopefully you can now see why use a odd colour of paper if you've got it, or just print it in a funny colour. All of a sudden, for a combination of thinking ahead design and this technique of sticking down and using a piece of wood, you see that relatively, oh God, it's going to take him forever to make that thing, has just come down to 1, 2, 3, 4 straight lines. Nipping these out, trim to length. I've only got one bit that's got any challenge associated with it whatsoever. I've decided actually, while just staring at this and looking at this and weighing my options, I'm going to add a couple more 10mm holes in these corners, because it'll make it easy for me to make this shape. So a washer with a 10mm hole in the middle, nice easy way of doing things. I'm just going to eye it up. What this can enable me to do is saw easily or grind easily into this hole without going right to the corner, because I've already got a radius there. Same on this side, just leaving me that bit to think a little harder about. Well, I'm going to do this next bit using a disc cutter. Some of you may not have that tool or not feel confident with it. I'm quite handy with one of these because I've cut so many bits of bodywork and floor out of Volkswagen campers. But you could transfer this onto a thinner piece of wood and then use a jigsaw, or you could use a Dremel, or you could use tin snips or gilbows to cut most of it out. But I've got this, I'm handy with it, so that's what we're going to use. It's probably the quickest way to do things. And again, I'm keeping it on the wood. I can cut into the wood, it has no consequence. I've left a little bit of material still on. We've not gone quite to the black line because it's very easy to file. Plus you can see why it's so useful to have these holes. I'm not worried about overrunning into that bit and making a nick because it just opens out into the hole. So those bits, done. I'm going to leave that bit separate. I'm going to cut this just to get the bulk of the material out, and then I'll move on to these bits. Now I can replace it with one here, the washer, another one here with a washer, I've decided to freehand chain drill this and then file it into finished shape, and I use a 5mm drill for that. And that is the whole thing roughed out. For the next piece of work, we're going to have to clamp the workpiece in our vise to clean it up with a file. And like most vices, mine has steel jaws with serrated teeth to aid gripping. You can swap those, they're usually got Allen key fittings. But even if you haven't got a bought set, you can have a couple of what we call soft jaws very easily with a couple of bits of aluminium L-shaped extrusion, which is the same material as your clamping, and in preference you'd have softer. It just means you're not going to emboss your workpiece with that pattern from the jaws of the vise. So I'm just going to drop this down into my vise at that end. It'll be a little bit offset. There we go. So that I can clean up what's left over from chain drilling. I'm going to start off with a carbide or diamond grit file, doesn't matter what you get, nice coarse one. These are great for cleaning up big areas, and aluminium particularly because they've got nice open spaces. The aluminium doesn't clog them up too badly. There's a little above the vise as you can cope with. Stops racket noise and chatter, as in the workpiece bouncing around, and all gets very annoying. Use a half round file. Once you've knocked the sharp points off, use a flat for that bit. There we go. Got rid of the worst of the spikes. And what you can do is roll your file like that as you file. This will give you a nice arc and stop you from just filing down a groove in one place. We'll do this in real time because I don't want you thinking this is particularly hard work or laborious. If anything, I'd like you to come away from this video thinking, oh, I'd like to do some fabricating in my garage. It's not really that difficult, is it? I have to do this without the lines, just for this piece. I'm pretty confident on where I'm going. There we go, very close. Well, I'm going to file all around this now and just make it neater. I'm pretty sure you don't want to watch me doing that because I'll be enjoying myself and you guys won't. Back in a bit. Well, as predicted, I've had a lovely time filing this to the final shape. So I just left the paper on as long as I could to get it down to size, then a bit of alcohol spray and a bit of rubbing, got the sticky paper back off. Used a little bit of P120 grit paper by hand to just rub it over, take the sharp edges off. The only mod I made on the fly was I decided to radius the corners of the legs. No function, if I'm honest, it just looks prettier, but you're never going to see that because it's going inside the vent and being attached. So can't touch it, can't see it, but I liked it. Just introduce you to another tool I've got. Now, you do not need one of these, and I've even done a little experiment, not folding this in my vise, but folding this in my vise, and I did that by hand followed by a rubber mallet. So if you haven't got this bit of kit, you'll be fine. However, for those who have got one of these, or those who've got a birthday coming up soon and want one, this is my little bench folder. A very simple device. It's just a more precision way of going about putting a neat fold in things. I've had the tool years, and the tool is actually just this part, the metal, plus this piece of nice tool steel. So definitely not necessary, and to be honest, I'll probably end up tweaking it anyway and using a vise. But I've got it and it's nice and precise, so that's what I'm using. As long as I mark a nice square line, hence line it up on the edge of there, eyeing up against the folder. Let's put one line on there. And on the same side of the piece of metal, we want to mark out where we want the folds for these bottom tabs. Fold, fold. And because I've rounded it a little bit, it's not so clear where they are. They're 22 long. So we'll go 22. All I need to do is drop this piece of tool steel on to my machine in line with the fold or the gap or the hinge, call it what you like. Line up my mark. When everything looks right, just get a couple of clamps. I'm satisfied with that. I've got a black line on the fold line on my machine. I've clamped that side down. Now what we're going to do is just ease the handles up. There's no effort required. Doing it nice and slow. We'll go all the way up to the back of the tool steel. And there we are. A really neat fold. So I've tweaked it a little bit more using the old broken vent that I had on the bench here just to get it about right. I feel that I might have to actually bend this one up a little bit to be parallel with that one, but it's not far off at that. So I've got my Carpuride unit. I've put just the base and that little pivot cup from this mounting on just for experimental purposes. Put the bolt through the hole, hook him back on. Okay. Let's go offer it up to the car. Hopefully I've set you up at a decent angle there. So just offer that up. Woohoo! Only fits into position beautifully. I don't know how well that's going to show. Let me change the lighting. There we go. It's not too bad. That's not bad, eh? So let's position the camera above the dashboard. The unit about where I want it. That looks rather good. Yeah. Right. That's a scary light, isn't it, when it's from below? Ooh. That look quite scary most of the time. Let's move it up. Right, I'm going to go in for my tea now. But yes, I'm very, very pleased with that. That is very close to finished. I just need to play with the angles a little bit more, and obviously I'll measure the angles for you, let you know how I get on. I might paint it black before you see me next, on the grounds that it's quite boring watching paint dry, isn't it? And then I will do another little film where I take the vents out and we attach that to them. I'll finish off with a shot of the aluminium part in position without the Carpuride screen. If you want to see any of the bits and pieces of tools I mentioned, have a look in the description below the video. I'll leave links to the same or very similar, wherever I can find for you for those interested. And I'll also leave the links to the Carpuride unit because quite a few folk have decided to go along with me on this one and buy one. And yeah, if you're still interested, the discount codes that I was able to get are still valid as I write video. So please use them. They are giving huge discounts off. See you soon. If you're enjoying our channel, then don't forget to subscribe and click the little bell icon so you get notifications of new videos. And please give us a thumbs up or thumbs down, and you can share the videos. And below the video is always the area where you can comment and get involved with the chat.